What if I told you that the ground beneath your feet holds a secret capable of rewriting human history? Not buried treasures or lost cities, but something far more profound. The Earth itself might have a hidden reset button, one that flips the entire planet's magnetic field upside down. Picture this: the sun rises in the east, the stars still shine, but every compass needle suddenly points south instead of north. Chaos would erupt, navigation systems fail, migratory animals lose their way, and if it happened before, if the poles have flipped before, what did that mean for ancient civilizations? Could entire societies have risen and fallen, their stories erased by a planetary upheaval we're only now beginning to understand? This isn't science fiction. Geomagnetic reversals are real. Scientists know Earth's magnetic field has flipped hundreds of times over millions of years, with the last major reversal happening around 780,000 years ago. But here's the chilling part: we're overdue for another one. And when you start piecing together the clues, ancient myths of world-ending catastrophes, mysterious gaps in archaeological records, advanced technologies lost to time, it begs the question: did a magnetic reversal already reset human civilization once before? Could the ruins of forgotten empires and the legends of fallen gods be echoes of a time when the planet itself turned against us? Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. We'll explore the hard science behind pole shifts, from the molten iron dynamo in Earth's core to the fragile shield that protects us from solar radiation. We'll examine strange anomalies like why so many ancient cultures, separated by oceans, shared eerily similar stories of global calamity. And we'll confront the unsettling possibility that humanity's past might be far more fragile than we've ever imagined. This is a journey to the edge of what we know, where geology meets mythology, and where the very ground we stand on might hold the key to our species' forgotten past. Strap in, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at history or the planet beneath you the same way again. To understand how Earth's magnetic field could rewrite history, we first need to grasp how it works. Picture our planet as a giant magnet with invisible lines of force stretching from the South Pole to the North. This magnetic field isn't just a compass quirk, it's our shield. Generated by swirling currents of molten iron in Earth's outer core, it deflects deadly solar radiation and cosmic rays, making life possible. But here's the catch: that protective field is far from steady. Like a restless sleeper, it shifts, wobbles, and occasionally flips entirely. When a reversal begins, the magnetic field doesn't just snap like a light switch, it frays. Over centuries or even millennia, the field weakens, splitting into multiple temporary poles scattered across the globe. Compasses would spin unpredictably. Auroras might blaze over regions that never see them today. And with the shield faltering, solar storms could bombard the surface, frying electronics, disrupting power grids, and bombarding life with elevated radiation. Sound apocalyptic, it gets worse. Studies of deep-sea sediments show that during past reversals, Earth's climate went haywire, ice ages accelerated, weather patterns destabilized, and extinctions spiked. Now, imagine this unfolding during human civilization's fragile infancy. Ancient cultures built megalithic monuments aligned to the stars, tracked celestial cycles with astonishing precision, and passed down myths of skies falling and worlds reborn. The Gerbeckly Teep ruins, dating back 12,000 years, show advanced knowledge of astronomy, then were deliberately buried. The ancient Egyptians wrote of a time when the sun rose in the wrong place. Aboriginal oral histories describe a period when the sky turned red and the ground shook, Coincidence, or could these be fragmented memories of a geomagnetic crisis? The smoking gun lies in the rocks. When lava cools, iron-rich minerals lock in the magnetic field's direction like a snapshot. By studying these records, scientists uncovered a startling anomaly. Around 42,000 years ago, Earth's field dropped to just 6% of its current strength for centuries, an event called the Lachamp's Excursion. Tree rings from that era show spikes in radioactive carbon, proof of solar particles penetrating our weakened shield. And this period lines up with catastrophic ecological shifts, mass extinctions, and, crucially, the rise of complex human behaviors like cave art and ritual burial. Did our ancestors face a celestial trial by fire, one that reshaped their world and forced them to adapt or perish? The rocks whisper yes, but to hear the full story, we must turn from geology to the echoes preserved in humanity's oldest myths. Across the globe, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica, our ancestors left behind stories so strikingly similar they defy coincidence. The Egyptian Book of the Dead speaks of a time when the sky turned upside down, while the Hindu Vedas describe cosmic battles where gods unleashed floods and fire from the heavens. Plato's account of Atlantis sinking beneath the waves may sound like fantasy until you realize dozens of cultures, separated by continents and oceans, all preserved variations of the same cataclysmic theme. What if these weren't just metaphors or morality tales, but desperate attempts to document real events? Take the ancient Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, where the god Enlil sends a global flood so terrifying it shook the skies like a whirlwind. Halfway around the world, the Popol Vuh of the Maya tells of a great inundation that wiped out a previous race of humans. Even indigenous Australian legends speak of a time when the sky fell and the earth was remade. The consistency is uncanny, not just in the events described, but in the visceral details. Multiple cultures mention prolonged darkness, bizarre weather, and stars that wandered from their normal path. Could these be eyewitness accounts of a geomagnetic reversal in progress? Scientists studying paleoclimatology have uncovered something startling. Around 12,000 years ago, right when many of these myths first emerged, Earth experienced the Younger Dryas period, a sudden plunge back into Ice Age conditions. Geological evidence shows this shift happened alarmingly fast, possibly within decades. The same era saw the extinction of megafauna like woolly mammoths and the collapse of early human settlements like Gerbeckly Teep. But here's the kicker: sediment layers from this time contain unusually high concentrations of rare metals like platinum and iridium, materials typically associated with cosmic impacts. Did a comet strike trigger a cascading disaster, or could the real culprit have been a faltering magnetic field, allowing solar radiation to scorch the planet and destabilize the climate? The most compelling clues come from ancient astronomy. The Dendera zodiac in Egypt and the Antikythera mechanism from Greece prove early civilizations tracked celestial movements with precision. Yet many cultures also recorded periods when the heavens seemed to go haywire. Babylonian tablets describe Venus changing its course, while Chinese astronomers wrote of stars that fell like rain for days. Even the Bible's book of Joshua mentions the sun standing still in the sky, a phenomenon that makes no sense astronomically unless Earth's rotation was disrupted. When you combine these accounts with physical evidence like rapidly shifted magnetic signatures in ancient pottery, a pattern emerges. Our planet's most traumatic moments might be written not just in rock, but in the stories we've told for millennia. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether these events happened, but how much was lost when they did. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote of an Egyptian priest who scoffed at Greeks for being children with no memory of their distant past. The Mayan Dresden Codex contains precise astronomical tables tracking Venus over thousands of years' knowledge that would have required centuries of observation. How many other civilizations rose, recorded their understanding of the cosmos, and then vanished beneath the tides of geomagnetic chaos? If the poles flipped today, burying our cities under layers of sediment, what fragments of our existence would future archaeologists misinterpret as myth? The answer might lie in the very stories we've dismissed as legend whispers from a time when the sky itself was the enemy. The Younger Dryas period stands as one of Earth's most baffling climate mysteries, a sudden, violent return to Ice Age conditions that rewrote the rules of survival. In geological terms, the shift happened in a blink. Global temperatures plummeted within decades, ice sheets re-advanced, and ecosystems collapsed. But what's truly chilling isn't just the speed of the change, it's the eerie coincidence with humanity's own cultural upheaval. Just as the cold gripped the planet, the Clovis people of North America vanished, their advanced spear points abandoned. Mammoths and other megafauna that had thrived for millennia were wiped out almost overnight. And at Gerbeckly, Teep, our earliest known temple was deliberately buried, as if its builders were hiding something or fleeing something. The smoking gun lies in the dirt. Sediment layers from this exact period contain wild spikes in rare metals like platinum and nanodiamonds, materials typically forged in cosmic impacts. For years, scientists pointed to a comet or asteroid strike as the culprit. But here's the twist. Those same sediments also show radioactive isotopes like beryllium-10, a telltale sign of solar radiation bombarding the planet. That raises a haunting question. What if the comet was just the opening act? What if Earth's magnetic field, already weakened by a potential reversal, left the door wide open for disaster? Think of it like a cosmic perfect storm. A weakened magnetic shield would have let solar flares and cosmic rays penetrate deeper, scrambling weather patterns and mutating plant life. Ancient tree rings from this era show bizarre growth patterns, as if the very seasons had gone haywire, and if the skies were raging with auroras and radiation storms. It's no wonder cultures worldwide describe the sun as angry or the heavens as falling. The Hopi tribe's legend of a blue star that brought fire from the sky takes on new weight when you consider solar protons igniting the atmosphere. Even the biblical plagues, blood-red rivers, boils, darkness read like symptoms of a planet under electromagnetic siege, but the most compelling evidence might be in the ice. Greenland's ice cores reveal a staggering detail. Right at the Younger Dryas boundary, there's a sudden spike in ammonium and nitrate chemicals linked to massive wildfires. Now imagine a world where the magnetic field is flickering. Solar particles rain down, igniting forests. The sky fills with smoke, blocking sunlight and accelerating cooling. Oceans' currents stall as temperature gradients shift. It's a domino effect that could explain everything from the mammoth's extinction to the disappearance of early human settlements. And if our ancestors did witness this, their stories of world-ending fire and ice start to sound less like myths and more like survival manuals. The real puzzle isn't whether the Younger Dryas was traumatic, it's why we're only now connecting the dots. Modern science has spent decades treating ancient accounts as allegory, but what if they were warnings? The Maya calculated cosmic cycles with terrifying precision, predicting epochs of destruction. The Norse spoke of Fimbulwinter, a prelude to Ragnarok where the sun blackens and brothers turn on each other. These aren't just tales, they're echoes of a time when the planet itself became the enemy. And as we dig deeper into ice cores, sediment layers, and the hidden messages in megalithic monuments, one truth becomes unavoidable. The past isn't as stable as we thought. The ground beneath us has a memory, and it's screaming that we've been here before. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure so precisely aligned to true north that it rivals modern engineering. Its four sides deviate from cardinal directions by less than 1/10 of a degree, an accuracy that seems impossible for a civilization working with simple tools. But what if the builders weren't just skilled architects? What if they had access to knowledge about Earth's magnetic field that we've only rediscovered in recent centuries? The pyramid's alignment isn't just a quirk of ancient craftsmanship, it's a potential clue that its designers understood something fundamental about our planet's invisible forces. This mystery isn't unique to Egypt. Halfway across the world, the Maya constructed observatories like El Caracol, with windows perfectly aligned to Venus's cycles. Their calendar, accurate to within seconds over centuries, suggests an astronomical precision that defies explanation without advanced instruments. Then there's the Indus Valley civilization, where entire cities were laid out on grid patterns matching celestial events, complete with sophisticated drainage systems that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. How did these cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, achieve such feats? The unsettling possibility is that they weren't starting from scratch. If a geomagnetic reversal or some other global catastrophe disrupted an earlier advanced society, fragments of their knowledge might have survived. Ancient texts like the Hindu Vedas describe flying machines called vimanas and weapons, bright as 1,000 suns. The Antarctica mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device for predicting eclipses, proves sophisticated technology existed far earlier than mainstream history admits. Could these be remnants of a pre-reversal world, where understanding of Earth's magnetism and cosmic cycles was far more advanced? Look closer at the pyramids. Their corridors align not just to stars but to specific moments in Earth's 26,000-year precession cycle, a detail requiring observations spanning generations. The Maya's long count calendar tracks cosmic cycles lasting millions of years. These aren't just monuments, they're time capsules built to outlast catastrophes. The Gerbeckly Teep complex, buried intentionally 12,000 years ago, seems designed to preserve knowledge across millennia. Were these structures meant as arks not for people, but for information? The most compelling evidence lies in the materials. The Great Pyramid's inner chambers contain granite blocks weighing 80 tons, transported from quarries hundreds of miles away. Modern engineers still debate how this was possible without advanced machinery. The Maya's cement, stronger than modern concrete, has kept their structures standing in earthquake zones for centuries. And let's not forget Puma Punku's stonework in Bolivia, where andesite blocks were cut with such precision that they fit together like puzzle pieces, a technique requiring tools harder than diamond. Perhaps the greatest clue is in what's missing. The sudden disappearance of advanced cultures like the Maya coincides with periods of extreme climate shifts and geomagnetic instability. Their abandoned cities show no signs of war or famine, just empty streets and half-finished projects, as if work stopped overnight. The Library of Alexandria's destruction erased countless ancient texts, but what if it was just the last chapter in a much older story of lost knowledge? This raises a haunting thought. If our ancestors could build monuments to survive pole shifts, solar storms, and time itself, what else did they know that we've forgotten? The alignment of ancient structures might be more than architectural pride. They could be breadcrumbs left by a civilization that understood Earth cycles well enough to anticipate their return. And if that's true, the real question isn't how they built these marvels. It's why we stopped believing they could. Plato's account of Atlantis isn't just a story, it's a riddle wrapped in geological possibility. He described a powerful island nation beyond the Pillars of Hercules, adorned with concentric rings of land and water, thriving with advanced technology before vanishing beneath the waves in a single day and night. For centuries, scholars dismissed it as allegory. But what if Plato was preserving a distorted memory of a real catastrophe? The key lies in the details. He claimed Atlantis fell 9,000 years before his time, placing its collapse around 11,600 years ago, precisely when the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe was reshaping the planet. The Richat structure in Mauritania, a series of concentric rings visible from space, matches Plato's description with uncanny precision. Satellite images reveal erosion patterns suggesting massive flooding, while geological surveys show evidence of ancient river channels now buried under sand. But here's the twist: the region wasn't always a desert. Core samples from nearby ocean sediments contain layers of freshwater diatoms, proving the Sahara was once a lush network of lakes and rivers. If a thriving civilization existed there, a sudden pole shift could explain its demise. Rapid magnetic fluctuations might have disrupted ocean currents, triggering monstrous tsunamis. Tectonic stresses could have collapsed coastal shelves, swallowing cities whole. The parallels don't stop there. Ancient maps like the Piri Rise chart, drawn from older sources, depict Antarctica ice free with startling accuracy, as if copied from pre-cataclysm surveys. The Babylonian Enuma Elish speaks of the god Marduk shifting the heavens, causing the ocean to rise and overwhelm the land. Even the Aztecs recorded 4 previous suns or ages, each destroyed by elemental chaos. These aren't isolated myths, they're fragments of a global narrative. Modern archaeology adds fuel to the fire. Off the coasts of India and Japan, sonar has revealed submerged structures with staircases and pillars, dating back to the same epoch as Atlantis' supposed fall. Graham Hancock's research highlights fingerprints of the gods at ancient sites like Gunung Padang in Indonesia, where radar shows man-made chambers buried under volcanic ash from a cataclysmic eruption. Could these ruins be the scattered bones of a pre-reversal world? The most chilling clue lies in Plato's text itself. He wrote that Atlantis' downfall came when its people lost their divine nature, angering the gods. But reinterpret that through a scientific lens. What if divine nature referred to their understanding of Earth's magnetic field? The Egyptians called the North Pole the primordial mound, the source of cosmic order. The Vedas describe a golden age when humans communed with celestial forces. If Atlantis possessed technology harnessing geomagnetic energy like the mythical Vril or Orichalcum, a pole shift wouldn't just destroy their cities, it would erase the very foundation of their power. Whether Atlantis was a literal city or a metaphor for lost knowledge, its story resonates because it mirrors Earth's own instability. The same forces that built the Richat structure's rings could have drowned them. The magnetic field that guided ancient sailors might have betrayed them. And if our civilization faced a similar reversal today, how much of our world would survive to become someone else's myth? The sands of Mauritania whisper that the line between legend and history is thinner than we dare admit. Imagine waking up to a world where every machine has gone silent. No lights, no phones, no way to call for help. That's exactly what happened in 1859, when the most powerful solar storm in recorded history, the Carrington event, slammed into Earth. Telegraph wires burst into flames, operators received shocks through their equipment, and auroras lit up the sky as far south as Cuba. But here's the terrifying part. That storm was child's play compared to what the sun is capable of. And if Earth's magnetic field weakens during a reversal, we wouldn't just face another Carrington, we'd face an extinction-level electromagnetic apocalypse. The math is sobering. Modern studies of tree rings and ice cores reveal that superflares solar storms hundreds of times stronger than Carrington. have struck Earth multiple times in the last 10,000 years. One, around 7,760 years ago, left radioactive scars in Greenland's ice that suggest a particle bombardment unlike anything we've witnessed. Now picture that hitting during a magnetic reversal when our protective shield is down to single-digit strength. Transformers would explode like popcorn, frying power grids continent by continent. Satellites would tumble from orbit, their circuits fried. Within hours, society would spiral into darkness, no refrigeration, no water pumps, no emergency services. But here's the chilling twist. This might not be the first time humanity has faced this nightmare. Ancient texts hint at technologies far beyond what we expect from their eras. The Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old clay jar containing an acidic electrolyte and copper cylinder, suggests knowledge of electricity. The Dendera light bulbs carved in Egyptian temples depict what look like Crookes tubes, early electrical devices. Even the legendary Tower of Babel, described as reaching the heavens, takes on new meaning if it was some form of conductive structure. What if these weren't just curiosities, but remnants of a society that harnessed energy in ways we've forgotten? A single solar superflare during a magnetic reversal wouldn't just knock out their power, it would vaporize the very foundation of their civilization. The smoking gun lies in the archaeological record. Layers of vitrified stone rock melted into glass have been found in ancient ruins from Scotland to the Gobi Desert. Conventional explanations point to warfare, but the temperatures required exceed anything primitive weapons could achieve. Now consider what happens when a solar storm interacts with unshielded electrical systems, arcing, plasma discharges, and heat intense enough to fuse sand into glass. The sudden abandonment of cities like Mohenjo-Daro, where skeletons lie scattered in streets with no signs of violence, starts to make grisly sense if an electromagnetic pulse cooked their technology, and possibly them, in an instant. But the most haunting evidence isn't in ruins, it's in our genes. Human populations show bizarre genetic bottlenecks around 12,000 and 42,000 years ago, points where our ancestors nearly went extinct. Traditional theories blame climate change or disease, but neither explains the global scale. A solar storm during a magnetic reversal, however, would have bathed the planet in radiation, causing mass sterility and mutations. Indigenous stories from the Cherokee to the Maori speak of burning skies that left survivors sterile for generations. Even the Bible's account of Moses' shining face after encountering the divine could describe radiation burns from an atmospheric plasma event. This raises an uncomfortable question. How many times has humanity climbed the ladder of progress, only to have the sun kick it out from under us? The Antikythera mechanism proves the ancient Greeks had gearwork rivaling 18th century clocks. The Roman concrete used in seawalls, still intact after 2 millennia, outperforms modern mixtures. These aren't just anomalies, they're breadcrumbs from past cycles of collapse and rebirth. If a Carrington-scale event could set us back centuries today, what did a superflare do to civilizations without the luxury of written records? The answer might be written in the very gaps of our history, the silent stretches where technology seems to regress for no reason. We think we're the first advanced society, but the Earth keeps whispering that we might just be the latest. Buried beneath the Turkish hills for 12,000 years, Gerbeckly Teep doesn't just rewrite history, it defies it. This sprawling complex of massive stone pillars, some weighing over 16 tons, was carved with intricate animal reliefs and arranged in precise circles long before the wheel or metal tools were invented. Its existence shatters the conventional timeline of human progress. We're taught that civilization began with farming, yet here's a monumental temple built by hunter-gatherers, its construction requiring coordination and knowledge that shouldn't have existed. But the real mystery isn't just how they built it, it's why they went to such lengths to hide it. Every stone at Gerbeckly Teep tells a story, and the language is written in the stars. The pillars aren't randomly placed, they align with constellations like Orion and Cygnus as they would have appeared in 10,950 BCE. One pillar, known as the Vulture Stone, shows a series of symbols that researchers now believe depict a catastrophic comet impact. The carvings match the dates of the Younger Dryas climate disaster, when global temperatures plummeted and wildfires scorched continents. But here's what's chilling: the site wasn't abandoned after this catastrophe. It was carefully buried, layer by layer, as if its builders were sealing a time capsule. This deliberate entombment raises spine-tingling questions. Why go to such effort to preserve a temple unless you expected disaster to strike again? The Maya stored knowledge in pyramid chambers aligned to precessional cycles. The Egyptians encoded warnings in the dimensions of the Great Pyramid. Could Gerbeckly Teep's burial have been another attempt to safeguard cosmic knowledge across millennia? The site's alignment with solstices and its carvings of scorpions, symbols of transformation in ancient astronomy, suggest its creators understood cyclical cosmic threats. They might have known something we're only now rediscovering: that Earth's magnetic field is a flickering shield, and its collapse could reset civilization once more. The most haunting clue lies in what's missing. Unlike later temples, Gerbeckly Teep contains no evidence of daily habitation, no hearths, no trash pits. This wasn't a place for living, it was a place for remembering. The pillars' carvings don't just depict animals, they show them in twisted, unnatural positions, as if frozen in mid-transformation. Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt described the site as a portal to the cosmos, where rituals may have been performed to ward off celestial threats. Imagine a priesthood tracking the slow dance of stars, watching for patterns that predicted past calamities and bracing for their return. Modern science is catching up to their foresight. Geomagnetic studies now show that around the time Gerbeckly Teep was buried, Earth's magnetic field underwent a dramatic weakening called the Lachamp's excursion. Solar radiation spiked, climates destabilized, and early human societies faced extinction. The builders of Gerbeckly Teep wouldn't have understood magnetism as we do, but they could have seen the effects: auroras blazing at strange latitudes, animals migrating unpredictably, storms of unprecedented fury. Their response: to carve their warnings in stone and bury them where they'd survive, waiting for a future civilization desperate enough to listen. What chills the bones isn't just the precision of their astronomical knowledge, but the urgency behind it. These weren't primitive people stumbling toward progress. They were survivors of a cosmic game of roulette, etching a message in pillars and earth: the sky has fallen before. It will fall again. As our own magnetic field shows signs of growing instability, their silent monument stands as both a beacon and a reckoning. The real question isn't whether they knew, it's whether we'll heed what they tried to tell us. One of the biggest misunderstandings in this cosmic puzzle comes down to two easily confused terms: pole shifts versus pole reversals. Though they sound similar, these phenomena operate on entirely different scales with vastly different consequences. A true pole shift, sometimes called true polar wander, involves Earth's outer crust physically sliding over the molten mantle below, like the skin of a peach shifting around its pit. This would relocate entire continents, rewrite coastlines, and tilt the planet's axis. The idea fuels doomsday theories, but here's the catch. While minor axis wobbles occur, there's no evidence of sudden, catastrophic crustal displacement in human history. A magnetic reversal, on the other hand, is undeniable science. Here, Earth's magnetic field weakens, frays into multiple poles, and eventually flips direction: north becomes south. Unlike the slow dance of continental drift, Reversals leave fingerprints in volcanic rock and ancient clay pottery. The last full reversal happened 780,000 years ago, but shorter excursions, like the Lachamp's event 42,000 years back, prove the field can temporarily collapse in geological blink. This confusion between physical and magnetic shifts might hold the key to deciphering ancient catastrophe myths. When Babylonian tablets describe the heavens tilting or Inca legends speak of a time when the sun stood still, were they witnessing a magnetic reversal's bizarre side effects? Without modern science, how would they describe the auroras blazing at equatorial latitudes, compass stones spinning uselessly, or stars appearing to slip from their constellations as the magnetic field destabilized? The Gerbeckly Teep pillars, aligned to a sky that no longer matches their carvings, suggest these builders recorded celestial changes we'd now attribute to magnetic fluctuations, not the ground itself moving. Consider the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, where the sky goddess Nut is depicted bending over the earth, her body scattered with stars. In one passage, the sun god Ra complains that the sky has grown weak, allowing chaos to seep through. Modern geomagnetic models show that during reversals, the magnetosphere, our shield against solar radiation, can drop to 10% strength. Imagine the cosmic fallout: radiation spikes mutating crops, solar storms igniting wildfires, and the northern lights glowing blood red over Memphis. To Bronze Age observers, this wouldn't just feel like the sky failing. It would seem like the world itself was capsizing. The same distortion might explain why so many cultures preserved world upside-down legends. Hindu texts describe the demon Rahu swallowing the sun, causing days of darkness, a chilling parallel to the ash-filled skies following the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Chinese astronomers recorded stars that fell like rain during the reign of Emperor Zhuangzi, coinciding with a geomagnetic anomaly around 2600 BCE. Even the Bible's tale of Joshua's long day, where the sun halted in the sky, makes scientific sense if Earth's rotation briefly stuttered under electromagnetic stress. The terrifying truth: ancient witnesses may have described real events with the only vocabulary they had. When your compass points south instead of north, the world flipped isn't metaphor, it's observation. When radiation bleaches the sky white for years, the sun grew weak becomes fact. These myths aren't just stories, they're survival reports from civilizations that weathered a geomagnetic storm and lived to warn us. The real question isn't whether they mixed up the terms, it's whether we're listening close enough to separate signal from static. Antarctica wasn't always the frozen wasteland we know today. Satellite radar scans have peeled back the ice, revealing jagged formations beneath 2 miles of glacial cover, structures with right angles and geometric precision that defy natural erosion. Some appear eerily similar to the ruins of ancient cities, with grid-like patterns resembling streets and what could be the foundations of massive buildings. But here's what chills the blood. If these are man-made, they'd have to be older than the ice itself, and the ice, according to core samples, has been there for at least 12,000 years. This isn't wild speculation, it's a puzzle backed by hard evidence. Take the infamous Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral using far older sources. It depicts Antarctica's coastline with shocking accuracy but without ice. Even more baffling, the map shows mountain ranges and rivers that match modern subglacial topography, features we didn't confirm until seismic surveys in the 1950s. How could medieval cartographers know details buried under millennia of ice unless they had access to knowledge from a time before the freeze? The answer might lie in Earth's fickle magnetic field. When the poles flip, the resulting chaos isn't just electromagnetic, it's climatic. a weakened magnetosphere lets solar particles punch through, scrambling atmospheric currents and triggering rapid cooling. Geological records show that around 12,000 years ago, Antarctica's glaciers surged, swallowing whatever lay beneath in a geological blink. If a thriving culture existed there, a reversal could have been their extinction event, freezing their cities, collapsing their ecosystems, and burying their legacy under ice thick enough to preserve it like a time capsule. But the anomalies don't stop at maps. Core samples from Antarctica's Lake Vostok contain traces of pollen and tropical plant fossils, proving the continent once teemed with life. Russian scientists drilling near the South Pole hit a layer of sediment packed with microscopic algae that only grow in temperate freshwater, evidence of a vast, ancient lake system. And then there's the Pyramid sightings, 3 jagged peaks near the Shackleton Range with slopes angled at precisely 60 degrees, a shape almost unheard of in natural geology. Mainstream researchers dismiss them as nunataks or glacial rock formations, but the symmetry is unsettlingly precise. The most haunting clue comes from the ice itself. Layers of ash and cosmic dust in Antarctic cores align with the Younger Dryas period, the same era when Gerbeckly Teep was buried and megafauna went extinct worldwide. This wasn't a local event, it was a global cataclysm, and if Antarctica's freeze was part of that catastrophe, it reshapes everything we thought we knew about human history. Could the legends of Hyperborea, a mythical advanced civilization said to dwell in the far north, actually be distorted memories of a southern counterpart? The Greeks wrote of a land where the sun never set, warmed by subterranean fires. The Maori speak of Uru, a primordial homeland lost to icy darkness. These stories span continents, yet they all whisper of a paradise swallowed by cold. Modern technology is finally lifting the veil. Ground-penetrating radar has detected what some researchers believe could be vast, hollow chambers beneath East Antarctica's ice sheet, spaces too large and regular to be natural caves. Thermal scans show strange heat signatures in regions with no volcanic activity, as if residual energy lingers under the frost. Even NASA Operation Icebridge has mapped anomalies that defy conventional explanation, from metallic reflections to structures resembling colossal pillars. The terrifying implication: we might be standing atop the greatest archaeological site in human history, one frozen in time by a planetary upheaval we're only beginning to understand. If a magnetic reversal triggered Antarctica's glaciation, it didn't just erase a civilization. It preserved its remains in a deep freeze, waiting for a future age to uncover them. And as our own magnetic field weakens, hurtling toward another potential flip, those icy ruins serve as both a warning and a promise. Civilizations fall, but the Earth remembers. What if the cataclysms of Earth's past weren't just magnetic, but electric? The electric universe theory proposes a radical idea: that planets and stars aren't isolated bodies floating silently through space, but nodes in a vast cosmic circuit. Under this model, Earth doesn't just passively orbit the Sun, it exchanges torrents of plasma with it, like a speck of dust caught in a celestial thunderstorm. And when the planet's magnetic shield falters during a reversal, that invisible electrical balance could snap with apocalyptic consequences. Picture lightning, but not the familiar forks from cloud to ground. Imagine bolts stretching thousands of miles, arcing between the upper atmosphere and the surface with enough energy to fuse sand into glass in an instant. The evidence lies scattered across deserts, fields of Libyan desert glass, golden shards of silica melted into translucent forms dot the Egyptian border. Tests show they formed at temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees, far hotter than any wildfire or meteor impact could produce. Similar vitrified stone appears in ancient ruins from Scotland's Tap o' North to India's Mohenjo-Daro, where sections of brickwork appear flash-melted. Mainstream geology struggles to explain these anomalies, but plasma physicists point to a terrifying possibility. These could be scars from prehistoric mega-lightning, discharges so powerful they turned solid rock into bubbling lava. Ancient accounts read like eyewitness reports of such events. The Babylonian Epic of Era describes gods wielding 7 blazing torches that melted mountains like wax. Hindu scriptures speak of the Vajra, a divine weapon that released streams of fiery light and made the rivers boil. Even the Bible's destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, with its raining fire and brimstone, takes on new meaning if reinterpreted as a plasma discharge. These aren't just metaphors for wrath, they could be literal descriptions of atmospheric phenomena we've only begun to understand. The science behind this is both cutting edge and oddly intuitive. We've long known Earth carries an electrical charge relative to the ionosphere, a potential difference of about 300,000 volts. Normally, our magnetic field stabilizes this gradient. But during a reversal, as the field fragments, that balance could destabilize violently. Laboratory experiments with high-energy plasma show how such discharges can sculpt rock into bizarre, flowing shapes resembling the megaliths at Peru's Sacsayhuaman, where stones appear softened and molded like clay. Perhaps the most chilling implication isn't just the destruction, but the preservation. The same forces that could annihilate cities might also freeze them in time. Electric arcs generate intense electromagnetic pulses, capable of magnetizing objects in microseconds. This could explain why some ancient artifacts exhibit anomalous magnetic signatures, as if they'd been flash-fried in a planet-sized microwave. The vitrified forts of Europe, the glassified streets of Mohenjo-Daro, even the melted stone layers beneath the Giza Plateau, each could be snapshots of moments when the sky turned against the Earth. Modern infrastructure sits helpless before such threats. In 2003, a single plasma ejection from the sun caused a blackout across Sweden and damaged transformers in South Africa. That was a glancing blow from a calm sun. Now imagine a direct hit during a magnetic reversal when Earth's defenses are down. Our power grids would ignite like matchsticks. Satellite constellations would fry, and if the electric universe theorists are right, we might face something far worse: the return of the very forces that sculpted the nightmares of our ancestors. The question isn't whether the sky can turn violent. It's whether we'll recognize the warning signs before the next storm breaks. Every year, millions of monarch butterflies embark on a journey spanning thousands of miles, guided by an invisible force we can't even perceive: Earth's magnetic field. The same goes for sea turtles, whose hatchlings instinctively navigate toward the ocean using magnetic cues imprinted in their biology. Even whales, those gentle giants of the deep, rely on magnetic landmarks to traverse featureless oceans. But what happens when that compass suddenly flips? If Earth's magnetic field reversed today, the consequences for these species wouldn't just be confusing, they'd be catastrophic. We've already seen glimpses of this chaos. When solar storms distort Earth's magnetic field, birds veer off course, colliding with buildings or landing hundreds of miles from their migratory routes. Honeybees, which use magnetite crystals in their abdomens to navigate, become disoriented, threatening pollination cycles that sustain entire ecosystems. Now imagine that disruption multiplied 1,000-fold, lasting not for hours but decades, the time it takes for a full magnetic reversal to unfold. The results could rewrite the rules of survival overnight. Ancient cave paintings might hold clues to such moments of ecological upheaval. In France's Lascaux caves, dating back 17,000 years, herds of animals are depicted stampeding in frenzied, chaotic patterns, far from the orderly migrations seen in later art. Similar scenes appear in Aboriginal rock art from Australia and petroglyphs in the American Southwest, all showing animals behaving erratically, as if fleeing some unseen terror. Could these be prehistoric records of geomagnetic instability, when caribou suddenly abandon ancient migratory routes or salmon stop returning to their spawning grounds? Human societies built around those patterns would face disaster. The domino effect would be merciless. If whales strand themselves on unfamiliar shores, coastal communities lose a vital food source. If pollinating insects vanish, crops fail. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE offers a sobering parallel, entire civilizations crumbling within decades, their downfall linked to climate shifts and food shortages. Now picture that scenario triggered not by drought, but by a planet-wide navigation failure. The Akkadian Empire's collapse was preceded by records of birds changing their paths and fish disappearing from the rivers. The Mayas' meticulous calendars tracked animal migrations. What happened when those patterns broke? Yet some species might hold the key to survival. Bar-headed geese, which fly over the Himalayas, navigate using multiple cues, stars, landmarks, and even smell, making them less vulnerable to magnetic shifts. Ancient humans likely observed these resilient creatures, perhaps explaining why geese appear in myths worldwide as guides between worlds. The Inuit legend of Sedna, a sea goddess who commands sea mammals, warns that disrespecting nature's balance makes animals hide from hunters, a haunting metaphor for ecological collapse. The deeper truth lies in adaptation. When magnetic north wandered rapidly during the Lachamp's excursion 42,000 years ago, Neanderthals vanished while Homo sapiens thrived, possibly because we innovated tools and social structures to cope with changing ecosystems. The same ingenuity might explain why Gerbeckly Teep's builders switched from hunting gazelles to domesticating wheat as animal populations grew unpredictable. Their survival strategy wasn't just luck, it was a blueprint written in the bones of species that failed to adapt. Today, as our magnetic field weakens at an accelerating rate, we're left with an unsettling question. Are we the next civilization to face this trial by fire? The difference is we can see it coming. Satellite data tracks migrating animals in real time, while geneticists study magnetoception in species from trout to fruit flies. But knowledge alone isn't enough. The cave paintings and myths aren't just warnings, they're survival manuals from cultures that weathered Earth's last great magnetic storm. The real test isn't whether the poles will flip, but whether we'll heed the lessons carved in stone by those who survived it before us. Right now, as you watch this, an invisible hailstorm of cosmic radiation is raining down on Earth, but our magnetic field deflects most of it like an umbrella in a downpour. Take that shield away, even partially, and the consequences would be written in our very cells. During a magnetic reversal, when Earth's protection dwindles to a fraction of its normal strength, the influx of high-energy particles wouldn't just scramble electronics, it would rewrite biology. DNA, the delicate blueprint of life, is exquisitely vulnerable to radiation. A single cosmic ray can shatter strands, causing mutations that ripple across generations. The fossil record holds eerie evidence of this. Paleontologists studying ancient human remains have uncovered skeletons with bizarre deformities, skulls elongated like those found in Paracas, Peru, or bones thickened to grotesque proportions, as if the body was desperately reinforcing itself against some invisible assault. Mainstream science often chalks these anomalies up to isolated genetic disorders, but what if they're scars from a time when the sky itself turned toxic? The Lachamp's excursion 42,000 years ago lines up suspiciously with a burst of evolutionary activity, the emergence of new human behaviors, artistic expression, and even physical changes. Coincidence, or did radiation force a desperate genetic gamble where only the most adaptable survived? Modern genetics adds weight to this theory. Studies of mitochondrial DNA reveal startling bottlenecks in human populations, points where our ancestors teetered on the edge of extinction. One such bottleneck coincides with the Younger Dryas period, another era of geomagnetic instability. Survivors carried mutations that may have granted resistance to radiation damage, mutations still tucked in our genomes today. The BRCA gene, linked to cancer susceptibility, shows unusual variants in populations that weathered these crises. Could these be genetic souvenirs from a time when the sky failed? The effects wouldn't stop at DNA. Cosmic rays striking the atmosphere produce cascades of secondary particles called muons, which penetrate deep underground and deep into living tissue. Normally, this background radiation is negligible, but during a reversal, calculations suggest muon flux could increase by 500%. Ancient texts from India's Mahabharata describe warriors whose flesh rotted without wound, while Babylonian medical tablets speak of plagues that blackened the skin from within. These aren't just poetic horrors, they're uncannily accurate descriptions of acute radiation sickness. Perhaps the most chilling evidence lies in the trees. Radiocarbon spikes in ancient tree rings match periods of geomagnetic weakness, proving that solar protons were flooding the atmosphere. But some trees tell a darker story. Fossilized groves from 12,000 years ago show growth patterns twisted into nightmarish spirals, as if the plants were writhing away from some unseen torment. Similar deformities appear in modern lab experiments where plants are exposed to intense radiation. The message is clear: when the shield falters, life itself twists under the onslaught. This raises a haunting question: how many of humanity's sudden evolutionary leaps were actually desperate adaptations to a radioactive sky? The explosion of cave art after Lachamp's, the rapid domestication of crops following the Younger Dryas, these could be the birth pangs of a species forced to evolve or die. Even today, our bodies might carry silent warnings from those who survived the last great geomagnetic storm. The real threat isn't just the next reversal, it's forgetting what the previous one cost us. Beneath the turquoise waters near Bimini lies one of archaeology's most tantalizing enigmas, a half-mile stretch of perfectly aligned limestone blocks, their edges squared off with uncanny precision. Known as the Bimini Road, this submerged formation looks less like natural geology and more like the cobbled streets of a sunken city. Scientific dating places its emergence around 10,000 BCE, a timestamp that sends chills down the spine of any catastrophe researcher. That's the exact moment the Younger Dryas freeze reversed into rapid melting, sending sea levels surging hundreds of feet. Could these stones be the ruins of a coastal civilization swallowed by the waves? The blocks tell a provocative story, composed of beachrock, a type of limestone that forms in shallow water. Their arrangement defies random chance. Some slabs measure 15 feet long, fitted together in a straight line that continues beyond where sand has buried it. Marine geologists argue wave action could fracture rock into geometric shapes, but the Bimini Road's right angles and stacked layers resemble megalithic sites on land. Even more intriguing, core samples reveal the blocks were once above water, exposed to air and weathering before sinking. This wasn't a reef that grew underwater. It was something built on dry land and drowned. The timing aligns with a planetary nightmare. As the Younger Dryas ended, ice sheets collapsed in cascades, dumping fresh water into the oceans and disrupting currents. Global sea levels rose at rates exceeding 10 feet per century, enough to erase entire coastlines within generations. Ancient maps like the Peary Rise chart show now submerged land bridges with startling accuracy, hinting that pre-flood cartography existed. The Maya's sacred text, the Popol Vuh, describes a great migration when the sea rose and the earth was overturned. Similar flood myths from Mesopotamia to Aboriginal Australia speak of cities vanishing beneath the waves when the stars still walked. But Bimini might just be the beginning. Sonar surveys across the Caribbean have revealed similar formations like the underwater pyramid off Cuba's coast, detected at 2,000 feet down with smooth sides and what appear to be inscriptions. Near Japan's Yonaguni, a massive stepped monument lies submerged, its terraces and ramps too symmetrical to dismiss as erosion. Even the Gulf of Cambay in India hides an ancient riverbed littered with pottery and human remains at depths that should have been dry land 12,000 years ago. These aren't isolated anomalies, they're dots on a map leading to a forgotten epoch. The real bombshell comes from the rocks themselves. Geochemists studying Bimini's limestone found microscopic shell fragments locked inside, but not from local species. These were deep-water organisms, suggesting the blocks were quarried elsewhere and transported. That level of coordination implies a society with maritime technology advanced enough to move multi-ton stones across open water. Yet, according to mainstream history, humans at that time were barely out of the Stone Age, hunting mammoths with spears. The contradiction is staggering. Either nature sculpted a perfect fake city, or our timeline of human achievement is missing entire chapters. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the Bahamas' indigenous legends. The Lucayan people spoke of a time when their ancestors walked with the sea gods on land that later sank. Their creation myths describe a great quake that split the earth, followed by waves that ate the temples. Modern divers have spotted circular formations near Bimini resembling foundation stones, as if something far larger once stood there. If just one of these sites proves artificial, it rewrites everything we thought we knew about prehistory. The ocean floor isn't just hiding shipwrecks. It could be hiding the bones of civilizations that thrived when the poles were last unstable, their stories preserved not in clay tablets, but in the silent geometry of drowned stone. 12,000 years ago, Earth didn't just face a magnetic crisis, it endured a cosmic ambush. A star in the Vela constellation, a mere 800 light-years away, detonated in a supernova so violent its shockwave might still be rippling through our solar system today. When that star died, it didn't go quietly. It flooded our planet with gamma rays, X-rays, and a torrent of radioactive particles, leaving scars in the most unexpected places, the rings of ancient trees and the icy depths of Antarctica. The proof is etched into Earth's natural archives. Tree trunks from that era show wild spikes in radioactive carbon-14, a telltale fingerprint of cosmic bombardment. Ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica contain layers rich in beryllium-10 and chlorine-36 isotopes forged when stellar radiation slams into our atmosphere. These aren't just abstract data points. They're pages from a celestial autopsy report revealing a time when the sky itself turned hostile. Now, imagine this unfolding during the Lachamp's magnetic reversal, when Earth's protective shield was already crumbling. The combination would have been apocalyptic, a weakened magnetosphere letting that stellar fury punch straight through to the surface, cooking the planet in a radiation bath no species was prepared for. The ecological carnage would have been swift and merciless. Paleontologists studying this period find bizarre gaps in the fossil record, entire species vanishing without the usual signs of climate-driven extinction. Mastodons and saber-toothed cats didn't just dwindle, they collapsed. pollen samples show forests abruptly replaced by fire-resistant shrubs, as if the continents were scoured by wildfires. Even the oceans weren't spared. Sediment cores reveal mass die-offs of plankton, the base of the marine food chain. This wasn't just an extinction event, it was a planetary rebooting. But here's where it gets eerie. Across the globe, the few human survivors of this catastrophe responded in ways that defy coincidence. They built monuments aligned not just to the sun or moon, but to specific stars, including what's now the Vela supernova remnant. Gerbeckly Teep's Pillar 43, carved with a scorpion and a circle of strange symbols, might depict the supernova's explosion relative to local constellations. The ancient Jomon people of Japan left behind clay tablets showing a star with radiating lines, eerily similar to how a supernova appears in modern telescopic images. And in Australia, Aboriginal rock art near Arnhem Land depicts a star explosion beside human figures with upraised arms, a possible eyewitness account passed down through hundreds of generations. Why would cultures separated by oceans fixate on the same celestial trauma? The answer might lie in what happens when the sky betrays you. A supernova bright enough to cast shadows at night would have been terrifying, but paired with a magnetic reversal, it could have rewritten reality itself. Auroras might have blazed at the equator, the northern lights replaced by a hellish, pulsing glow from the dying star. Solar radiation would have fried unprotected skin, forcing survivors underground or into caves, explaining the sudden proliferation of subterranean art and shelters worldwide. The most haunting clue comes from the myths. The Dogon tribe of Mali, renowned for their astronomical knowledge, speak of a star that exploded and brought a time of great suffering. The Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh describes the heavens raining fire while the compass of the earth spun wildly. Even the Norse myth of Ragnarök, where the sun turns black and stars vanish, takes on new meaning when viewed through the lens of a supernova's afterglow fading behind ash-choked skies. Modern astronomy confirms the Vela supernova's timing aligns too perfectly to dismiss. The remnant's expansion rate suggests it exploded right as the Younger Dryas began, and its distance matches the radiation spikes in our geological record. This wasn't just a bad day for Earth, it was a cosmic bullseye, a one-in-a-billion-year catastrophe that might have reshaped human destiny. The real question isn't whether our ancestors saw that star die, but whether they built their greatest monuments as both tombstones and warnings. The sky can burn, and when it does, the ground won't save you. The Ouroboros, that ancient serpent devouring its own tail, appears in cultures from Egypt to Mesoamerica, not as a random artistic flourish, but as a profound cosmic metaphor. To the Norse, it was Jörmungandr, the world serpent whose coils measured the boundaries of existence. The Maya depicted it as a feathered serpent swallowing the sun at the end of each calendar cycle. In Hindu tradition, it's the endless knot of time where creation and destruction spin in an eternal dance. But what if these cultures weren't just philosophizing? What if they were documenting a terrifying truth that Earth itself operates in cycles of collapse and renewal, with geomagnetic reversals as the hidden engine? Consider the mechanics of the symbol. A serpent consuming itself implies a system that resets, where the end becomes the beginning. Modern science reveals that Earth's magnetic field does exactly this, fraying, flipping, and regenerating in a loop that's repeated hundreds of times over our planet's history. The Maya's long count calendar, which tracks epochs of exactly 5,125 years, aligns eerily with geological evidence of magnetic excursions. The last major reversal 780,000 years ago was preceded by smaller, localized flips occurring roughly every 5,000 years, a rhythm that mirrors the Maya's world ages. Coincidence, or did they encode a warning in stone? The Norse vision of Ragnarok takes on chilling new dimensions through this lens. Their prophecies describe the sun blackening, the earth shaking, and the world serpent unleashing chaos before a new cycle begins. Now overlay that with the science. During a magnetic reversal, auroras could indeed darken the sun's light. Tectonic activity often spikes as the planet's electromagnetic balance shifts, and the weakening magnetosphere would leave ecosystems vulnerable to cosmic radiation, a literal serpent of energy coiling around the planet. Even the Norse detail of survivors repopulating the world fits. Genetic bottlenecks suggest human populations have been decimated and rebounded multiple times, as if following some ancient script. Hindu cosmology's 4 yugas epochs descending from Golden Age to Dark Age before restarting echo this pattern with uncanny precision. Ancient texts describe the Treta Yuga's end marked by the compass of the stars failing, while the Kali Yuga's climax involves the sky bleeding fire. These aren't vague prophecies, they're potential eyewitness accounts of a reversal's effects. When the magnetic field phrase, compasses spin wildly, and solar storms paint the atmosphere crimson exactly as the texts foretold. The Mahabharata even speaks of a weapon called the Brahmastra, whose effects scorched landscapes, mutated offspring, and years of winter mirror the aftermath of radiation exposure during a weakened magnetosphere. The deepest clue lies in the Ouroboros's unbroken circle. These cultures didn't view catastrophe as an end, but as a phase. The Aztecs ritually reenacted the destruction of previous suns, confident a new age would dawn. The Hopi speak of emerging into each world through a Sipapu, a symbolic portal of rebirth. This cyclical thinking might be humanity's greatest survival insight. Civilizations fall, but knowledge persists. Gerbeckly Teep wasn't abandoned, it was buried like a seed. The Vedas weren't lost, they were memorized across generations. The Ouroboros doesn't just warn of collapse, it teaches us to prepare for the turn of the wheel. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether these myths predict the next reversal, but whether we've retained the wisdom to face it. Our ancestors built monuments aligned to cosmic cycles, preserved stories in enduring stone, and encoded warnings in symbols that outlasted empires. In our age of fleeting digital records and fragile infrastructure, the serpent's message feels more urgent than ever. The cycle always continues. The only variable is whether we'll be ready when it does. Today's world hums on an invisible grid of magnetic dependencies, a web of vulnerabilities our ancestors could never have imagined. Every GPS satellite orbiting Earth relies on precise magnetic field data to triangulate your position. Power grids spanning continents are synchronized using ultra-sensitive magnetic sensors. Even the undersea fiber optic cables connecting the internet are shielded by Earth's magnetic field from solar radiation. Now picture that field flickering, weakening, or worst of all, flipping entirely. The chaos wouldn't just disrupt modern life, it would unravel it. Take the Carrington event of 1859 as a warning. When a solar storm hit Earth's magnetic field, telegraph systems, the cutting-edge tech of that era, sparked and caught fire. Operators received shocks through their equipment, and auroras lit the skies as far south as the Caribbean. Fast forward to today, and a similar storm could fry transformers across the globe, triggering cascading blackouts lasting months or years. But here's the terrifying twist. During a magnetic reversal, we wouldn't face just one Carrington-level event. We'd endure decades of relentless solar bombardment as Earth's shield crumbles. The economic cost, estimates suggest upwards of $20 trillion, not just from power outages, but from the collapse of supply chains, communications, and global finance. Ancient civilizations might have faced their own versions of this apocalypse. The Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device for predicting eclipses, contained precision gearwork that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance. The Baghdad battery, a clay jar filled with an acidic electrolyte, hints at forgotten electrical knowledge. If these technologies relied on Earth's magnetic stability, a reversal could have rendered them useless overnight. The sudden abandonment of cities like Mohenjo-Daro, where skeletons lie unburied in streets with no signs of violence, starts to make gruesome sense if their infrastructure, and perhaps their very biology, was fried by an unshielded sky. The lesson isn't just about fragility, it's about adaptation. While we've built a civilization exquisitely vulnerable to magnetic chaos, we've also unlocked tools our ancestors lacked. Space weather monitoring gives us days of warning for solar storms. Faraday cages could shield critical electronics. Some nations, like Finland, have already begun hardening their power grids. But the real key lies in humility. The Maya tracked cosmic cycles spanning millennia. The builders of Gerbeckly Teep buried their knowledge in stone. These weren't acts of superstition, they were contingency plans. Our best hope might lie in merging ancient wisdom with modern science. By studying ice cores and sediment layers, we've pinpointed past reversals. By decoding myths and megalithic alignments, we might uncover survival strategies lost to time. The magnetic field isn't just a scientific curiosity, it's the silent guardian of everything we've built. And if history is any guide, civilizations that ignore its whims don't get second chances. Deep beneath the rolling hills of West Java lies a mystery that rewrites the rules of human history: Gunung Padang, a terraced pyramid older than the Egyptian monuments by thousands of years. Core drills reveal something startling. Beneath its grassy surface, layers of sophisticated masonry date back at least 12,000 years, a time when mainstream archaeology insists humans were simple hunter-gatherers. The precision of the stonework is undeniable: interlocking blocks fitted without mortar, chambers hidden beneath artificial hills, and even what some researchers believe could be evidence of ancient concrete. But here's what chills the bones. This entire complex was deliberately buried, sealed under layers of earth as if hidden away for safekeeping. Why would a civilization capable of such engineering choose to entomb its greatest achievement? The answer might lie in the ground itself. Soil samples from Gunung Padang show abrupt layers of sediment, some containing microscopic shards of melted rock and traces of rare metals like iridium, materials often linked to cosmic impacts or extreme electromagnetic events. These aren't natural deposits, they're the fingerprints of a catastrophe, one so devastating that the builders might have known their work wouldn't survive unless they shielded it from the sky. Imagine a society witnessing the early tremors of a magnetic reversal: earthquakes splitting the ground, solar storms igniting wildfires, tsunamis swallowing coastlines, and making a desperate calculation: bury the knowledge or lose it forever. This pattern isn't unique to Indonesia. Halfway across the world, Turkey's Gerbeckly Teep was meticulously backfilled around the same epoch, its towering pillars interred under thousands of tons of rubble. In Peru, the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman show signs of vitrification: stone surfaces melted as if by extreme heat before being deliberately concealed beneath later constructions. Even Egypt's Great Sphinx bears water erosion patterns suggesting it was carved not 4,000, but potentially 12,000 years ago, then left to weather under layers of sand until rediscovery. The message is clear: these weren't abandoned sites, they were time capsules designed to outlast chaos. The real question isn't whether these civilizations anticipated disaster, it's how they knew. The alignment of Gunung Padang's chambers with Orion's belt mirrors celestial patterns found in ancient ruins worldwide, suggesting a shared understanding of cosmic cycles. The Maya tracked precession with calendars spanning 26,000 years. The Hindu Vedas describe epochs lasting exactly the same duration as Earth's magnetic reversal cycles. Could these cultures have recognized the signs, the weakening of the magnetosphere, the erratic behavior of migratory animals, the increasing frequency of auroras at strange latitudes, and realized what was coming? Modern technology is finally catching up to their foresight. Ground-penetrating radar reveals that Gunung Padang's hidden chambers contain geometric anomalies too precise to be natural. Some researchers believe they might house tools, artifacts, or even records from a pre-reversal world. If so, we could be on the verge of the greatest archaeological discovery in human history, not just the ruins of a lost civilization, but their survival manual. The builders didn't just bury stones, they buried a warning, one we're only now digging up. The Egyptian Djed pillar stands as one of antiquity's most enigmatic symbols, a towering column with crossbars, often described as the backbone of Osiris. But what if this wasn't just a spiritual metaphor? Modern plasma physicists point to its uncanny resemblance to a phenomenon called a plasma Z-pinch, where spiraling currents of electrified gas form stable, pillar-like structures in the sky. During a magnetic reversal, as Earth's shield flickers, such plasma formations could have dominated the heavens, visible even in daylight, arcing between the atmosphere and ground like the weapons of wrathful gods. The Djed's ritual raising ceremonies, where priests would erect the pillar amid chanting, might have been attempts to symbolically stabilize a sky that had literally turned against them. Halfway across the world, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia tell of the rainbow serpent, a celestial being that shaped the land with lightning. Their rock art depicts zigzagging lines connecting the earth to the sky, often alongside figures with raised hands, postures identical to those shown in cave paintings from France to Africa, as if mimicking the act of being struck by energy from above. Plasma discharges, when intense enough, can form braided filaments resembling serpents, writhing across the horizon. To cultures without the concept of electricity, these would have been living creatures, divine or demonic, rearranging the world with their fury. The Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh describes the god Adad wielding the mighty weapon that split the earth like a potter's vessel. Cuneiform tablets detail these tools as rods that shot light and made the rivers boil. Sound familiar? In 2008, scientists observed plasma phenomena in the lab called knots that, when discharged, produce effects eerily similar to the ancient accounts: localized explosions, channeled energy streams, and even secondary branches that could explain why so many myths describe divine weapons multiplying after impact. The Assyrian relief carving of the god Ashur standing inside a ring of flames, holding what looks like a coiled rope, mirrors modern high-energy plasma toroids captured by high-speed cameras. Even the Bible's book of Exodus, with its pillars of fire and smoke guiding the Israelites, takes on new dimensions through this lens. Plasma can form self-contained, glowing structures that hover for extended periods, precisely the behavior described in the text. The burning bush that was not consumed might have been a ball of ionized gas, a phenomenon still reported today in areas of electromagnetic instability. The most chilling implication isn't that these cultures imagined similar forces, it's that they documented them independently across continents and millennia. The Hindu god Indra's Vajra, said to pierce mountains with thunder, the Greek Zeus's lightning bolts, the Norse Thor's hammer, are all described directed energy weapons with unnerving consistency. When the Maori speak of Tohaki climbing lightning ropes to the heavens, or the Dogon describe the great fire of the stars that once scorched the earth, they're not just spinning tales. They're preserving eyewitness accounts of a sky alive with forces we've only recently begun to measure. Modern science dismisses plasma mythology as coincidence, but the overlaps are too precise to ignore. Laboratory experiments with high-energy discharges produce patterns identical to the sun wheels carved in Neolithic European stones. The Mayan Popol Vuh's description of a sky cord that burned the faces of the gods mirrors the plasma filaments observed during solar storms. Even the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of the sky being repaired by ancestral beings could describe the magnetosphere's slow recovery after a reversal. These myths aren't just art, they're the oldest science records in existence. When the Egyptian priest Manetho wrote of a time when the sky descended and chaos ruled, he wasn't prophesying. He was remembering, and as our own magnetic field shows signs of growing instability, those ancient warnings etched in stone and story take on a new urgency. The gods weren't throwing lightning, the sky itself was, and if history is any guide, it could happen again. The Greenland ice sheets hold frozen testimony to Earth's most violent chapters, layer upon layer of ancient snowfall, compressed into ice that spent millennia trapping secrets in its crystalline grip. When scientists drill deep into these frozen archives, they're not just extracting ice cores, they're reading a cosmic crime scene. Hidden within these pristine layers are sudden, dramatic spikes in a radioactive isotope called beryllium-10, a smoking gun left behind when Earth's magnetic shield falters and cosmic rays bombard the atmosphere. These spikes don't occur randomly. They line up with periods of geomagnetic turmoil reversals, excursions, and moments when the planet's protective field weakened to a whisper. Take the Lachamp's excursion 42,000 years ago. Ice cores from that era reveal beryllium-10 levels skyrocketing to 20 times normal concentrations, painting a picture of a sky turned hostile. Tree rings from the same period show stunted growth, as if the very air had grown toxic, but the most chilling evidence comes from the human remains unearthed near these dates. Skeletons show signs of acute stress, unusual bone lesions, signs of malnutrition, and in some cases, skull deformities consistent with radiation exposure. The Shanidar Cave in Iraq, home to Neanderthals during this era, holds bones with strange, spiral fractures, injuries that paleopathologists struggle to explain through conventional means. Could these be the scars of a species caught in a cosmic crossfire? The ice cores tell an even darker story when paired with other geological records. Sediment layers from lake beds across Europe and North America contain traces of wildfires that raged during these radiation spikes, as if the atmosphere itself had become a tinderbox. The Greenland ice holds microscopic particles of platinum and iridium metals, rare on Earth but abundant in comets, suggesting these geomagnetic upheavals might have coincided with extraterrestrial impacts. It's a perfect storm scenario, a weakened magnetosphere allowing solar and cosmic radiation to flood the surface, while simultaneous bombardment from space debris ignites global firestorms. The result, a planet caught between celestial hammer and anvil. Yet the most provocative clue lies in what happened next. Immediately after these radiation spikes, the archaeological record shows bursts of creativity and adaptation. Cave art flourishes, tools become more sophisticated, and humans begin burying their dead with ritual care. It's as if the near-extinction event forced a cognitive leap, a desperate innovation to survive a world where the rules had changed. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia, whose oral histories stretch back tens of thousands of years, speak of a time when the Sky Brothers sent down fiery ropes that forced their ancestors to take shelter underground. Could these stories encode memories of geomagnetic chaos, passed down through generations as survival lore? The real question isn't whether the ice cores reveal past catastrophes, it's whether we're prepared to face what they're telling us. Modern measurements show Earth's magnetic field weakening 10 times faster than predicted, with a troubling hole already open over the South Atlantic. Satellites passing through this region suffer increased radiation damage, a preview of what could happen globally during a full reversal. The Greenland ice doesn't just record history, it issues a warning written in isotopes and ancient sunlight. Our ancestors endured these cosmic trials with nothing but animal skins and fire. The question is, will our fragile web of technology fare any better when the sky once again turns against us? Nikola Tesla stood on the shores of Long Island in 1900, staring at his half-built Wardenclyffe Tower, a skeletal giant meant to harness the very pulse of the planet. To most, it was a failed experiment in wireless electricity, but Tesla's private notes reveal a far more radical vision. He believed he was rediscovering an ancient secret, a lost technology that once let civilizations tap into Earth's electromagnetic field like a cosmic power outlet. His journals speak of sacred sites aligned along invisible energy lines, of temples built atop geological anomalies where the planet's magnetic currents converged. The pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, the megaliths of Peru. Tesla theorized these weren't just tombs or calendars, but nodes in a global energy grid shattered by some forgotten catastrophe. The clues are etched into the stones themselves. The Great Pyramid's inner chambers contain granite blocks saturated with microscopic quartz crystals, a material known to generate piezoelectric charges under pressure. The massive dolmens of Carnac in France stand in perfect rows along geological fault lines where telluric currents run strongest. Even the mysterious vitrified hill forts of Scotland, their stones fused by impossible heat, cluster along paths where magnetic anomalies still ripple through modern instruments. These aren't random placements, they're the fingerprints of a science we're only beginning to decipher. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was designed to resonate with Earth's natural frequency, a principle he called the transmission of electrical energy through the natural medium. But here's the chilling parallel. Ancient Hindu texts describe Vimana's mythical flying machines powered by mercury vortex engines that harnessed the same planetary vibrations. The Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old clay jar filled with an acidic electrolyte, could have generated enough current to electroplate gold onto artifacts. And the Dendera light bulbs carved into Egyptian temple walls depict what look like Crookes tube's early electrical devices that, when replicated, produce an eerie glow strikingly similar to the celestial fire described in pyramid texts. What if these weren't isolated inventions, but fragments of a unified system? A global network where obelisks functioned as antennas, temples as transformers, and ley lines as transmission wires. The sudden collapse of such a grid would explain why so many advanced cultures, the Maya, the Indus Valley, the builders of Gerbeckly Teep, abandoned their cities not with signs of war, but as if the very rules of their world had changed. A magnetic reversal wouldn't just disrupt compasses, it could scramble the planet's resonant frequencies, rendering any technology dependent on them useless overnight. Imagine flipping a breaker on civilization itself. The implications for our own era are staggering. Modern researchers have detected unexplained electromagnetic pulsations at ancient sites like Newgrange in Ireland, where the 5,000-year-old passage tomb amplifies radio frequencies at dawn on the winter solstice. The massive stone spheres of Costa Rica, once dismissed as artistic oddities, have been found to emit measurable electromagnetic fields. Even more provocatively, recent experiments with Tesla coils near Egyptian pyramids have recorded strange energy spikes, as if the stones remember their original function. This raises a terrifying possibility that the greatest threat of a magnetic reversal isn't just radiation or climate chaos, but the silent crippling of any technology relying on Earth's stable field. Our power grids, satellites, even basic electronics could become relics in a world where the ground itself has shifted its tune. Tesla may have died penniless, his tower dismantled for scrap, but his warnings echo through time. The ancients didn't just predict catastrophe, they built architectures to survive it. Their megaliths weren't monuments, they were batteries waiting for the day the sky would fail again. As our own magnetic field wavers, the real question isn't whether Tesla was right about the past, it's whether we'll listen before history resets itself once more. Earth's climate has always been a pendulum, swinging between ice ages and tropical warmth, but hidden in those swings is a pattern that defies coincidence. Every major geomagnetic reversal in the geological record aligns with a dramatic climate shift, as if flipping the planet's magnetic poles also flips a hidden switch in the weather machine. The mechanism is both elegant and terrifying. As the magnetic field weakens during a reversal, solar winds, usually deflected by Earth's invisible shield, punch through the upper atmosphere like bullets through tissue paper. These charged particles don't just create auroras, they scramble atmospheric chemistry, thinning the ozone layer and rerouting jet streams. The result? Monsoons vanish where they've rained for millennia, while deserts bloom under sudden deluges. Take the Sahara, a region now synonymous with scorching dunes. Beneath its sands lie the bones of rivers, pollen from vanished forests, and the ruins of cities built where no civilization could survive today. Satellite imagery reveals ancient river channels stretching across the desert like ghostly veins, remnants of a time when this was the green Sahara, a lush savanna teeming with hippos and giraffes. Archaeologists call this the African humid period, a 5,000-year stretch ending around 5000 BCE, a date that raises eyebrows when compared to geomagnetic records. Sediment cores from the Atlantic show the Sahara's greenery collapsed abruptly, coinciding with a sharp drop in Earth's magnetic field strength. The transition was so swift that Neolithic rock art in Tassili Enaja depicts the change in real time. Early cave paintings show herds of cattle and swimming humans, while later layers reveal drought-stricken landscapes and figures with arms raised to a blazing sun. But the Sahara isn't alone. In now barren regions of Arabia, the lost city of Yuba, once a thriving oasis mentioned in the Quran as Iram of the Pillars, sank beneath shifting sands around the same epoch. Hindu texts describe the Saraswati River, a lifeline for the Indus Valley civilization, drying up when the heavens shook. Even the biblical plagues of Egypt, with their rivers turning to blood and crops failing, read like an eyewitness account of ecological collapse during magnetic turbulence. The common thread: these civilizations didn't just face bad weather, they lived through climate whiplash, where generations of stable rains gave way to merciless drought in less than a human lifetime. The smoking gun lies in the ice. Greenland's ice cores preserve annual layers like tree rings, and during magnetic excursions, they show wild spikes in beryllium-10 proof that cosmic rays were flooding the atmosphere. But dig deeper and the cores reveal something darker. Layers of dust from distant deserts, transported by winds that had shifted course violently. At the end of the last ice age, as the magnetic field wobbled during the Lachamp's excursion, temperatures in Greenland rocketed by 20 degrees Fahrenheit in under a decade. Europe swung from tundra to temperate forest and back again within centuries. For humans clinging to the edges of survival, this wasn't climate change, it was climate warfare. The terrifying takeaway: our planet's climate system is far more fragile than we've assumed. The same forces that erased the Sahara's rivers could redraw our own coastlines, drown megacities in biblical rains, or strangle breadbaskets with drought. Ancient cities like Petra, carved into Jordan's cliffs, survived by hoarding every drop of water in ingenious cisterns. the Maya engineered vast reservoirs to weather dry spells. These weren't just feats of engineering, they were acts of desperation by cultures that had seen the sky turn against them. As our own magnetic field weakens at an accelerating pace, their ruins stand as both tombstones and textbooks, whispering a lesson we can't afford to ignore. When the compass flips, the climate follows. Standing stones have always been more than just rocks. They're frozen echoes of ancient knowledge, whispering secrets across millennia. Take Stonehenge, where the towering sarcens align precisely with the summer solstice sunrise. But look closer, and you'll find something even more intriguing. Some of its smaller bluestones point to celestial positions that wouldn't have been visible when the monument was built 3000 BCE, but would have matched the sky 12,000 years earlier. This discrepancy isn't a mistake. It's a potential breadcrumb trail, suggesting the builders referenced astronomical knowledge passed down from an even older civilization that witnessed a different celestial order. Easter Island's Moai statues tell a similar story. Most face inland to watch over their descendants, but several gaze outward toward points on the horizon where certain stars would have risen during periods of magnetic instability. The Ahu Akivi platform aligns perfectly with the equinox sunset, yet local oral history claims these statues were originally positioned to track the wandering of the sky gods. Modern geomagnetic studies reveal something startling. If you account for estimated pole shifts over the last 12,000 years, some Moai align with where true north would have been during the Lachamp's excursion, when the magnetic field last collapsed. The real cipher lies in the stone's imperfections. At Carnac in France, over 3,000 megaliths stretch across 4 kilometers in eerily straight lines, except for a curious kink in the Grand Menhir-Brisset alignment. For centuries, archaeologists dismissed this as a builder's error. But when researchers superimposed the Carnac lines against reconstructed magnetic pole positions, the kink aligned perfectly with a sudden polar shift recorded in volcanic rocks from 3400 BCE. It's as if the builders deliberately corrected their compass to account for the wandering pole. This pattern repeats worldwide. The ancient temple complex of Mnajdra on Malta contains solstice-aligned chambers, but one anomalous corridor points 17 degrees off true north, the exact deviation needed to align with magnetic north during the hypothesized Gerbeckly Teep pole position. The Mayan observatory at El Caracol has viewing tubes that not only track Venus but also frame stars that would have marked celestial north during past reversals. Even the Great Pyramid's so-called air shafts, long thought to be symbolic passages for the pharaoh's soul, align with specific stars that held pole position at different epochs, as if encoding a timeline of cosmic upheavals. The most compelling evidence comes from the stones themselves. When ancient cultures carved standing stones, they often embedded them with magnetite-rich rocks. Recent studies show these magnetic monoliths retain a record of Earth's field at the time of their placement. At the 2,000-year-old Olmec site of La Venta in Mexico, researchers found 16 basalt columns arranged in a pattern matching fluctuations in local magnetic intensity, a stone graph of geomagnetic instability. The Hopewell Mounds in Ohio contain magnetite deposits arranged in spirals that mirror plasma formations seen during intense solar storms. What emerges is a terrifying possibility. These monuments weren't just calendars or tombs. They were multi-layered warning systems. The solstice alignments marked time, the star alignments tracked celestial drift, and the magnetic stones recorded the planet's pulse. Together, they formed a global early warning network designed to outlast language and empires. The Nazca lines may encode plasma patterns from past solar storms. The angles of Newgrange's passage could predict the next Lachamp's-like event. even the Great Sphinx's erosion patterns align with simulations of climate chaos during magnetic reversals. The final clue comes from the legends. The Maori speak of their ancestors navigating by Te Ika e Moi, a fishhook constellation that changed position during the time of the upside-down sky. The Egyptian Edfu texts describe temple builders correcting their foundations when the celestial bull stumbled. These aren't just myths, they're operating manuals for civilizations that knew the poles could move. As our own magnetic field accelerates toward chaos, these stone sentinels stand as both memorial and prophecy, their silent alignments counting down to a moment they've witnessed before. The real question isn't whether they predicted the next reversal, it's whether we'll recognize the pattern in time. The Hopi people of the American Southwest still tell their children about the 4 previous worlds, each destroyed by fire, ice, flood, and wind before the current 5th world emerged. Their elders speak of the days of purification, when humanity must return to living in sacred balance or face another collapse. Half a world away, the Maori of New Zealand preserve nearly identical stories in their Wakapapa genealogies, recounting how earlier civilizations fell when they forgot the language of the land. And high in the Himalayas, Tibetan monks guard ancient texts describing the age when the sky turned over, instructing survivors to carve essential knowledge into mountainsides where it would outlast empires. These aren't isolated myths, they're a global survival manual written in the ink of lived catastrophe. What's striking isn't just the consistency of these warnings, but their specificity. The Hopi prophecy warns against building cities on coastlines, a bizarre precaution for a desert-dwelling tribe, unless they were preserving memories of post-reversal sea level spikes. Maori navigational chants describe sailing to high ground when the stars began to walk, mirroring scientific models of how a weakening magnetosphere could make constellations appear to drift. Even the Tibetan thread cross ritual, where colored strings are woven into complex geometric patterns, bears uncanny resemblance to plasma discharge formations seen during extreme solar storms. These traditions didn't just predict disaster, they encoded physics lessons in allegory. The survival strategies share a chilling pragmatism. The Dogon tribe of Mali, renowned for their astronomical knowledge, built their granaries with precisely angled ventilation shafts to preserve seeds through decades of famine, a design that also blocks cosmic radiation. Inca suspension bridges, woven from grass and rebuilt annually, could withstand earthquakes that would topple modern steel spans. The Aboriginal practice of fire stick farming, controlled burns to regenerate ecosystems, may have originated as a way to clear vegetation before solar storms ignited continent-wide wildfires. Each innovation feels less like cultural idiosyncrasy and more like a time-tested contingency plan. Most provocative are the recurring prohibitions against certain technologies. Multiple indigenous traditions forbid mining deep into the earth, warning it angers the world serpent. Modern geology reveals why. Fault lines and ore deposits often align with telluric currents, natural electrical flows that could become deadly during magnetic instability. The Hindu concept of Kali Yuga predicts a dark age when humanity becomes enslaved by machines that think, while Hopi elders caution against webs that cover the land, eerily prescient metaphors for our vulnerable power grids and internet infrastructure. These warnings suggest our ancestors didn't just endure pole shifts, they identified what made some civilizations more fragile than others. The ultimate test of these traditions lies in their resilience. When Spanish conquistadors burned Mayan codices, they didn't realize the most vital knowledge was duplicated in the Popol Vuh's oral verses, memorized syllable perfect across generations. The Inuit practice of building igloos with multiple chambers, a design that traps heat even if one compartment fails, mirrors their layered storytelling method. where survival knowledge is embedded in tales told and retold with ritual precision. Even the Aboriginal songlines, which encode navigation routes in melodies, function as both map and manual. The notes themselves contain mnemonics for finding water during drought. These aren't primitive superstitions, they're the distilled wisdom of civilizations that weathered planetary upheavals we can scarcely imagine. When a Maori Tohunga priest chants the exact depth to bury Kumara tubers to avoid frost, he's reciting data from a multi-millennial climate experiment. When a Tibetan monk enters a sand mandala only to destroy it, he's rehearsing impermanence, the first lesson of catastrophe survival. As our own magnetic field wavers, these traditions offer more than folklore. They provide a field guide for the next great reset, written in the only ink guaranteed to last, human memory itself. The real question isn't whether these strategies worked in the past, but whether we'll humble ourselves to use them in the future. The universe should be teeming with life, mathematically speaking. With billions of habitable planets in our galaxy alone, the silence from the cosmos is deafening. This is the Fermi paradox, the glaring contradiction between the high probability of alien civilizations and the utter lack of evidence for them. But what if the answer isn't about distance or technology? What if the great filter, the obstacle preventing life from spreading across the stars, isn't some distant challenge, but a recurring catastrophe buried in the very fabric of planets like ours? Magnetic reversals could be the universe's reset button, wiping out civilizations not once, but over and over in an endless cycle of ascent and oblivion. Think about Earth's own history. Just as humanity stands on the brink of becoming an interplanetary species, we're discovering that our planet has a habit of pulling the rug out from under advanced societies. The Younger Dryas extinction, the collapse of the Bronze Age, the mysterious abandonment of megacities like Mohenjo-Daro, all coincide with periods of geomagnetic instability. Now imagine this pattern repeating across the galaxy. A civilization develops radio telescopes, then loses them when a solar storm fries their power grid during a reversal. Another reaches early spaceflight, only to have their satellites torn from orbit by cosmic rays when their magnetosphere frays. The universe might be littered with the bones of cultures that almost made it, their progress erased by forces they couldn't predict or prevent. The chilling implication: magnetic reversals could create a cosmic event horizon for intelligence. Civilizations may rise just high enough to glimpse the stars, only to be dragged back into darkness before they can escape their home worlds. This would explain why SETI radio telescopes hear only silence. Advanced alien societies might blink in and out of existence like fireflies in a storm, their signals lost in the noise of their own planetary upheavals. The ruins of Gerbeckly Teep and the warnings of the Hopi could be Earth's version of a message in a bottle, one we're only now learning to read, but there's a glimmer of hope in this grim scenario. Unlike countless civilizations that may have come before us, we've uncovered the danger in time. Modern science has mapped the weakening of Earth's magnetic field, tracked past reversals in volcanic rock, and even predicted the effects of solar storms on our infrastructure. The same technology that makes us vulnerable global power grids, satellite networks, also gives us unprecedented warning. We're the first generation that could theoretically armor our civilization against a reversal, hardening electronics, diversifying energy sources, and storing knowledge in geomagnetic proof formats. The choice before us is stark. Will we become another statistical blip in the Fermi paradox, another civilization that flared briefly and vanished? Or will we learn from the ruins of our ancestors and the silence of the cosmos, breaking the cycle before it breaks us? The answer might determine whether humanity becomes a galactic species or just another cosmic cautionary tale. The evidence is mounting. Geomagnetic reversals aren't just scientific curiosities. They might be civilization's silent reaper. From the vitrified ruins of ancient cities to the genetic scars in our DNA, the planet keeps whispering the same warning. This has happened before. The Gerbeckly Teep builders buried their temple like a time capsule. The Maya tracked cosmic cycles with terrifying precision. The Hopi preserved stories of worlds lost to fire and ice. These weren't myths, they were survival guides. But here's the paradox: the very forces that could destroy us also shaped us. The genetic bottlenecks, the bursts of creativity after near extinction. Our ancestors didn't just survive these upheavals, they evolved because of them. The cave art that blossomed after the Lachamp's excursion, the sudden domestication of crops following the Younger Dryas, these weren't random leaps, they were desperate innovations forged in the crucible of chaos. Humanity's greatest strength isn't just adaptability, it's memory. We're the first species to encode our warnings in stone, story, and now silicon. The difference this time: we can see it coming. Satellites monitor the magnetic fields accelerating decay. Ice cores and sediment layers have decoded the patterns of past collapses. We've mapped the vulnerabilities in our power grids, the fragility of our satellites. The question isn't whether we'll face another reversal, it's whether we'll use this knowledge to break the cycle. The ancients left blueprints in their alignments, their myths, their buried cities. The Great Pyramid shafts point to stars that once marked celestial north. The Maori star paths account for sky shifts we've only just measured. Their solutions were carved in stone. Ours could be written in code, in decentralized energy systems, in genetic libraries shielded from radiation. This isn't doom-scrolling, it's a call to arms. Every weakened transformer, every mutated crop genome, every scrambled GPS signal is a test run for the real event. The same technology that makes us vulnerable also lets us simulate solutions. Imagine solar storm early warning systems linked to global power grids. Seed vaults buried deep in stable rock formations. Digital archives stored in magnetic-proof formats. We're standing on the shoulders of civilizations that weathered this storm with nothing but oral histories and stone tools. Their legacy isn't just a warning, it's a challenge. The next chapter of human history won't be written by the reversal itself, but by how we respond. Will we become another layer of ruins for future archaeologists to puzzle over, or the first civilization to outsmart Earth's reset button? The answer isn't in the stars, it's in the choices we make today. Press subscribe and hit the bell because this story isn't ending. It's just beginning, and you've got a front row seat to the greatest survival challenge in human history. The magnetic field might flip, but humanity, we're just getting started.